As I said before, there are elections every year, depending on the office. So for us here in New York City, in 2017, there is the mayor's election, and with the mayor, there is public advocate, there is New York City controller. These are citywide offices. Every person in the city votes for them. And then there are the 51 city council seats. The city council is like the Congress, but only in New York City. So we have 51 seats. All of them are up for election this year. 3 of those seats are on Staten Island, North Shore, Mid-Island, and South Shore. Okay? There are also the 5 borough presidents up for election. Our Staten Island borough president is running for re-election. So every year there is an election, but depends on which office. So this year, every decision that is made in the city, for example, deciding whether or not to close the schools on the Muslim holidays. Alhamdulillah, after years of working, we succeeded, and Mayor de Blasio did make the decision, and now the schools, the public schools, close on both Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. That's a huge achievement. We've been working on this for 9 years. In order to get the mayor to do this, there was a lot of work, including with the city council members, including with the controller, including with the public advocate, including with every city council member. On June 30, 2009, the coalition that was working on this had proposed a resolution to pass from the city council in support of closing the Muslim holidays, the schools on Muslim holidays. So we had to work with every city council member, 51 of them, with the borough presidents, with the controller, with the public advocate, with the school union, the UFT, with other unions. So there is a lot of impact that the local elected officials have on us. Deciding the city taxes, for example. Who decides the city taxes? The city council. Okay. Who decides the alternate side parking calendar? That's the city council. So there are so many things that affects our daily life that are even more important if you vote for them than your vote for president, because this is what affects your daily life. If you vote for president, you affect the general policy of the country, the foreign policy, this and that. But when you vote for a city council member, you're voting for the school system, you're voting for the parking, you're voting for the water, the electricity price, all these things together. So just wanted to show you, give you some pieces of information why it is important or more important to vote in the local election than in the federal elections. Okay, so this year the elections will be 2 parts. There are the primaries and then there is the general election. The general election always, every year, the first Tuesday in November. This year it's November 7th. Okay. But before we get there, each party presents or has its own internal elections. So last time in 2013, Mayor de Blasio was running as a Democrat, and he had 6 others running as Democrats for mayor with him, or more. In New York City, the number of Democrats registered for voting, the people who are registered to vote, Democrats versus Republicans is 6 or 7 to 1. You have 1 registered Republican for every 6 or 7 Democrats, which means, or should mean, that the primary within the Democratic Party in particular is basically you're deciding who becomes the mayor in the primary, not in the general election. Why? Because if people who are registered Democrat will vote for the Democratic candidate anyway, and you have 7 Democrats to every 1 Republican, so by simple calculation, the Democratic Party candidate will win the election. So if you don't vote in the primary of the Democratic Party, you basically did not vote for mayor. Why? Because the people who voted to choose the candidate of the Democratic Party basically chose the mayor, because relatively speaking is an automatic win, which is what happened exactly. So Mayor de Blasio won the Democratic Party primary and won easily in the general election. So that's why, before we got to learn about politics and this and that, I used to say, I'm not comfortable with the policies of any of those parties. Yes, there is some good, but there is also some bad, and I don't want to associate with some of these bad things. But then I learned that if I don't participate within a party, whatever you choose, the party that you want to be in, I'm not going to have any say on who become the candidate or what policies this party produces, because my voice, those policies that I don't like, if I do participate and others like-minded, we can hopefully fix those bad things and produce better candidates to become, elected officials. So this is the idea of why it is very, very, very important to be enrolled and active, not only enrolled, registered, but active inside the parties. On Staten Island, the number of Democrats versus Republicans in registration is roughly 2 to 1, but usually the borough president is Republican, even though it's 2 Democrat to every 1 Republican. That's the numbers from the registration. Maybe it changed a little now because registration happens every day. But anyway, so the borough president usually Republican or non-Democrat. The congressperson usually Republican. 2 of the 3 city council members usually Republican. You see? So you decide which party you want to become involved in, and there are more parties than Republicans and Democrats, okay? There are other parties that you can decide to join, maybe even join in large number, so you, become the majority in deciding, making the policies better, not only for this community, but for society at large, okay? So decide which party you want to enroll in. You can change your voter registration. If you're not enrolled in a party, if you're independent, you can, the same form that you registered for to vote for, the same exact form. You fill it out again, and this time choose a party. If you have been enrolled in a certain party and you want to change, the same form. Okay, there's just one box different. First time, change, and you can see it easily on the form. And become involved. The other thing, very important, is any campaign for office, any elected office, from the Board of Education, from the water board, whatever it is, any election depends on 3 things. Of course, number 1 is the votes, when you actually go and vote in the actual election. But before that, in order for the campaign to become successful and become powerful, it needs 2 things: money and volunteers. What is money? Voting in New York City, there is the Campaign Finance Board. There is what is called matching funds. So, in New York City, any candidate for any office within New York City, the city elections, not the federal, not the state. So city council, borough president, mayor, public advocate, and controller. If you donate to the campaign up to $175, the city has matching funds. It gives 6 times that amount to the campaign. Let me say this again. I give, for example, the candidate for mayor $175 with a check or whatever, or a credit card. the amount of cash that you can give is $100, by the way. The maximum of cash is $100. And there are two cycles, the primary cycle and the general election cycle, when the primary ends. So you can donate twice or more, but up to the maximum limit. But the matching funds is only up to the first $175. So I give the candidate a check with $175. The city gives that campaign $1,050 above that $175. Okay? This is very important if you want to support a certain candidate, especially early in the process. Why? If you wait until a month before the election, because most of us don't start paying attention to elections except at the very end. But at the very end, the campaigns are already winding down. They already have set their mailing, those cards that you get at your home. They have set their advertising on TV or radio and this and that. So all this needs to be planned way in advance. So start very early, donate. If you're going to donate to a candidate, donate very early, because that's when that candidate and that campaign need the money most to plan all these things. And again, if you donate $175 or more, up to the maximum for whichever office, the city gives towards the first $175, $1,050. So that's a big boost that you can help campaigns with. What else? Oh, the maximum for the citywide office donations is $4,950. So you can give, if you want, $4,950 to the candidate for mayor or public advocate or controller. Once in the primary season and after the primary in the general election season. Again, two periods for donations. The city council and the board of president are lower amounts than the $4,950, but again, you can find this information easily from any campaign. And when you donate, you fill out a paper that, one, in order to donate, you have to be either a citizen or a green card holder. Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter where you live in the United States or even outside the United States, as long as you are a US citizen or a green card holder. You can donate and you can fill this paper, like your name, address, and where you work.
What is the importance of the mayor and alderman?
Well, the mayor decides, basically the mayor is the president of the city of New York. As we saw, Mayor de Blasio is the one who made the decision to make the schools close on the Muslim holidays. The previous mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, despite the campaign's work and having the support of every elected official, 51 city council members, 5 board of presidents, controller, public advocate, and the unions, still the decision was up to the mayor, and Mayor Bloomberg refused to close the schools on the holidays. The other thing is Mayor de Blasio, with the new police commissioner, the previous and the current, they reduced to a big degree the stop and frisk instances from 700,000 in 2011 to only under 100,000 in 2015. So that's a difference. Mayor de Blasio also closed the so-called, I forgot the actual name, but the spying unit that was spying on the entire Muslim community, not only in the city but outside. That's what happened under Mayor Bloomberg and Commissioner Killen. So Mayor de Blasio, with the police commissioners, decided to stop and close this unit. So the mayor is the president of the city. The importance is unlimited. Most of the decisions are in the hands of the mayor. But the mayor, similar to the president, does not work alone. There is the Congress of the city, which is the city council. So the city council makes the laws that the administration of the mayor applies. So the borough president, even though some people, including myself, are thinking that position is not really necessary, but still the borough president is the communication between our local issues in the borough and the administration can speak on our behalf. The Staten Island Expressway, for example, you saw how much it was widened and paved, and now the Verrazano is being reworked. The bridge, so still, even though the position is not that much needed, but still it can be bringing something. So what kind of checks and balances on the mayor for if he decides to do something against the will of the people or like that is not right? So first there is the city council, but there is us. Our involvement in general, not only this community but society at large, the involvement in the process is very important, because when you see, for example, 1,000 people calling 311 objecting to something or calling for something, you know, let's say there is a big pothole on Richmond Avenue and it's been weeks and nobody's doing something. If 1,000 calls go to 311 from local island people, that will make an issue. If a demonstration or a rally at City Hall with 300 people, that's a big deal. Just 300 people rallying for an issue is a big deal in City Hall. So our involvement is very important. We're busy, we have bills, we have kids, we have to fix the car, we have to do everything, but nobody will do it on our behalf if we don't participate. So participation is very important. We have the Muslim Political Club on Staten Island. Participate in that club. It's just an educational club and information like what I'm doing right now. At the time of elections or during the year, we give you information and answer your questions, help you with your registration, connect you with campaigns. I mean, it's just an educational thing. But when you become a member of that club and we go to any candidate or any elected official and we have 300, 500 members, that's a huge deal. It's not a small thing. So become members of the Muslim Political Club. Yes.
What is the role of a community board?
Excellent question. So there are community boards across the city, and there are also 51 of them. On Staten Island, there are 3 community boards. This is like a degree under the city council. Like they're not elected officials, they are mostly appointed, whether by the mayor or the borough president. But within the community board, and it's the districts are very close, similar to the city council districts. So they decide, for example, if this building that we're in can become a house of worship or not. One of the levels of approvals is deciding the zoning issues, whether or not to make exceptions for things. Like it is a very important post as well, and it's very important to know which district you live in and go to those meetings and participate. This is the People's Assembly, basically, for lack of another term. This mosque, in order to get approvals and permits and whatnot, we had to go in front of the community board and speak with them more than once throughout the years. So it is a very important also body, and thank you for raising that up.
If, for example, I know that the other boroughs, the number of the Muslim community, for example, if you take Bronx, it's very small, even though it's large, but if you take the number, the borough, it's large. But I see that in Staten Island, even though we see ourselves as a small minority, the number is big considered to the other borough. So how can we in Staten Island, I mean the Muslim community, come together and have a voice? Because if we can have a voice in Staten Island, it's like having a voice in the rest of the world.
You need somebody with your caliber to bring this up. Jazakallah khair, mashallah. So the number of Muslims across the city in the 5 boroughs is between 800,000 and 1 million. Okay, we learned those numbers over the years. There was a study from Columbia University Teachers College, Columbia University here in the city. So in 2005, they released this study and said there are at least 600,000 Muslims who live in the 5 boroughs, including 100,000 in students in public schools. This was the very first time to do such a study. They didn't have way more data than what is actually available now. So the numbers are no less than 800,000 to 1 million in the 5 boroughs. Okay, so now the population of New York City is 8.3 or 8.4 million, and you have 1 million of them Muslims. We're talking no less than 10% citywide. When it comes to Staten Island, it's proportional. We're also roughly about 50,000 on Staten Island, which also is about 10% of the island population. That's not a small number. That's a sizable minority. We can make or break many elections, like for offices. As a matter of fact, one of the people who realized this fact and spoke about it is the current public advocate, Letitia James. She's a friend of the community, and she's the one who said that the Muslim community is no longer the sleeping giant in this previous mayoral election in 2013. So participation is very important. Now the power part is what I said before. Become involved in an organized fashion. We are all involved in different degrees, but we don't put our resources and our voices together most of the time. So since the Muslim Political Club is there, that's the foundation, and I'm talking about Staten Island here in particular. There are other clubs across the city, and I'm going to end with that. When you become a member of this club, you fill a form, your name, address, the party that you're registered in, how many voters in your household, and this. So those numbers, especially when you have it on paper, if you go to city council member, for example, in your district I have 300 votes. Sometimes those elections, the difference between the winner and the not winner is 1,000 votes or this and that. So 300 votes is a huge deal. Again, don't underestimate the number. And we saw, for example, in the presidential elections, how many votes in Ohio was the difference between Clinton and Trump? A few thousand in an entire state. So imagine, and that decided the presidency of the United States in a way. So don't underestimate your vote. It's very important, really, to vote every time, because if you went to vote this last time, what did you do? As soon as you went there, they showed you your name on that book and you signed next to it, right? So those are tabulated. Like this data is tabulated. And then there is a report that anyone can see it, but especially candidates for future election look. Okay, so I see Hussein, he went to vote not only in the presidential election, but the 2 years before in the congressional midterm, and he voted in the primary, and he voted in the city council. Oh, okay, this is a serious person. I want to take those names that are taking it seriously, because if they vote every time, then it's almost guaranteed that they will vote when I'm running, and therefore I want to win their vote, because every vote can make a difference sometimes.